AI and this revolution, it is happening whether you like it or not. We're working on an AI version of me.
The six-finger Dave Rubin might not do as well.
We get the Twitter files, and I sat with Elon. It literally changed the world. Where are the YouTube files? Where are the Facebook files? If he wants to take everybody into the metaverse and have us all walking around with that strap-on our head, where you just went mentally, that's like 3 steps down.
We have a statue of Churchill here.
Oh, that guy. Look at that smug bastard.
Apparently responsible for modern Britain's problems.
Tucker said that line. It's been sort of disappointing to see Tucker do this. It's the ancient alienification of all of these things. Speaking calmly about things and really trying to dissect things properly, it just doesn't go viral. Tucker, at the height of his career, he walks into my garage. His exact words were,
CEO and co-founder.
The Lonsdale, the founding partner of
Palantir co-founder Joe Lonsdale.
I had a great discussion with my friend Dave Rubin. Dave was a comedian, a very funny guy. He was a progressive who got red-pilled. He was famously part of the early intellectual dark web online with all sorts of other famous names, like debating topics that no one else was willing to touch. You know, he's built some amazing media companies with locals. He's building something new right now. Previously, he was censored on YouTube, has a lot of interesting thoughts about media, where it's going, what's happening in the world. Dave's not only building a new media company, he's also creating a new tequila brand, some great cultural appropriation from north of the border here with other friends of mine. I'm excited for you to meet him. Welcome to American Optimist, Dave Rubin. Thanks for joining us.
Joe, I feel very underdressed. You got a fancy suit with a pinstripe, and I just got this like drop ship from China, and I feel that I've done you a disservice here.
I'm just coming from this conference nearby. They're dressed up a little more there.
You're a fancy guy. I'm happy to be here on the podcast.
You were at UATX, New University. We had Jason Calacanis and you up there. What was your impression of the place and the students?
I really was super impressed. I mentioned to everybody up there that I just did Oxford Union not too long ago, about 2.5 months ago, and I did the debate there. And, you know, it's incredible. You go to Oxford and it's an over 1,000-year-old institution, and just, you know, you feel like you're in kind of Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. You just really strongly feel this ancient tradition. And when you really think about it, when you look at all the pictures, I'm sure you've been there many times, when you look at the pictures on the wall of all of the classes over the hundreds of years, as long as they had photography, and you're like, boy, this thing has stood for so long, and they've churned all these good and bad ideas out, and how many, governments it survived and all this stuff. It's really incredible. And yet, truly, I was not that impressed with the students. I really wasn't. It's kind of a weird thing to talk about.
They're a little bit hesitant to offend anyone right now, so they don't really explore things boldly as much.
Right. So, and that was very evident to me. It seemed very clear that there was sort of nobody in charge, or that the social justice woke stuff has infected it. I went into the library there, and there was a huge trans flag basically draped over a major section of books, which I thought was quite an interesting optic, like that kind of, don't look at those books. Who knows what was behind there? Probably just some of the classics, nothing really scary. I wasn't, and the debate went well, and we won the debate. So that was nice. And it was defensive free speech. I was taking the opposition. They were basically for cancel culture. We were against it. So that all went well, but I didn't get a great sense of like, this is a place of real, like, rigorous study anymore, or we're really going to do things. I got the feeling of this is like a place where it's politically correct now and wokeness is here. That's the complete reverse of what I got last night. Those 80 or 100 or so students, when we were up there, you know what it's like when you're speaking in front of a group. I mean, if they're locked on you the entire time, you know that it's a good crowd, that they're really there. When we did the Q&A at the end, I mean, out of the 10 or so questions that we took, I would say 6 of the questions were kind of tough questions. They were oppositional to what we all thought of things, and I really like that. So I was very, very impressed. And as I said also last night, I was part of this IDW, intellectual dark web thing online when it was 7 or 8 years ago, when people were first online talking about things that were not in the mainstream, and to see like a brick and mortar, a physical place that has now become the embodiment of that was very, very rewarding for me. So yeah, it was a great night.
I love it. One exchange we had last night was about AI and how it's going to change what people need to study. Like Jason was saying, in 10 or 20 years, it's like any of the skills tied to studying hard and taking the SAT and getting a high score. None of that's going to matter at all. It's going to be different skills. What do you think about that? What should we be studying right now?
Ooh, what should we be studying? Well, I would say regardless, even if the robots are going to replace us, and even if Skynet is going to turn on, and even if we're all going to end up in the pink slime of the Matrix and all of those things, which are all likely, and we're probably in it right now, still knowing the classics and actually knowing history and some of those things and learning in person and all of that is still great. You know, I've had a running joke with my entire team that we're all going to be replaced. Like first it was like, they'll replace the editor. And then I was like, well, they will replace the director, and then they'll eventually replace the producer, and then eventually they'll replace the host. You know, it does feel like that is the direction that this is all going one way or another. As I mentioned last night, we're working on an AI version of me. So when I go away, Dave Rubin can actually guest host my show, which will be pretty cool. And when I come back, we'll be able to see, hey, does AI Dave?
How's he do?
How's he doing? Is he getting the stuff right? You know, we'll see. And what a cool test that will be.
What do you think gets you more audience? Is it like the shocking stuff, or the jokes, or just the good looking side of it? Like what matters there?
I don't know. We will see. Well, you know,
the A/B test.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, with AI, they still have some issues, you know, around fingers and mouth. So how creepy will it be?
Six-finger Dave Rubin might not do as well.
You know, but he might be better at grabbing the glass. You just do not know. But look, AI and this revolution that we're going in, it is happening whether you like it or not. I mean, I'm a big sci-fi movie guy, as you can tell, and every single sci-fi movie, there's always the part at the beginning where someone's kind of warning about what's going to happen, and we all still go there anyway, right? They're warning Skynet's going to turn on. It still turns on. You could watch any book by Isaac Asimov that was turned into a movie. I, Robot, the movie itself wasn't so great, but you know, there were all these warnings that Will Smith had about all of this stuff. Like it was all going to happen. So I just think we have to, it's like anything else. A hammer can crack someone's skull and it can help you build a home. It's going to be a tool, and you better learn to play along, because otherwise you're just going to be left behind.
And I feel like Asimov was at least a little more aspirational. Like the 1950s, yes. we were like, the science fiction is going to lead to this really positive world where all these things are better. And I think you're right. All the movies in the last 20 years, they're always like, there's a warning, and then it comes and everything's really bad. And
right.
But I mean, I tend to fall on the optimistic side. Obviously, I think most of these is just going to lead to like people being way better off, and there's finally going to be this IQ that's like pretty high from some of these things that maybe people will finally agree with me on all my policy stuff, because there's something really smart. It's going to convince
so that's the angle of AI for you.
I'm biased towards high IQ.
Yes.
I'm biased towards more IQ existing to help convince other people of smart things.
Yes. You know? Well, that is definitely possible, but that is an interesting notion. So that when sci-fi movies first came out, the whole idea, even the idea of the Jetsons, like if we took it to the most simplistic cartoon version, was that they were going to have all these cool gadgets in their life, and it would make their life a little bit better, right? Yeah. Then so we have that from like sci-fi of the comic books of the 50s, right? And then sci-fi moves, and then you get to sort of the 70s or so or the 80s even, when then our modern sci-fi, all the movies that we grew up with came out, and they all became very dystopian in nature. Everything was about technology basically destroying humanity in essence, whether it's the Terminator or some of those other, or Total Recall, some of those other movies. The answer probably lies somewhere in between, right? Like it's not going to lead us to this, like, I don't think it's going to lead us to this like pure utopia. I don't believe in a pure utopia. As long as humans are a part of it, we're imperfect, and we're going to create imperfect things, including AI. So I don't think it'll be perfect utopia, but I also don't think it'll be perfect dystopia, or I would at least hope not. But as a guy that will have a little influence along the way, you've got your work cut out for you.
Hope we leverage our smarts to make it better for everyone.
Yeah.
I want to ask about new media and entrepreneurship. So you've amassed millions of followers as a media figure, but you're also a builder. You're an entrepreneur. Like what have you built, and what are you building these days?
Well, I got two companies on the horizon, but the thing that I built in the tech world outside of just my production company that built Rubin Report, which is more on the media side, is I started Locals, which obviously you know about because you were one of our first investors. And really it was born purely the way I think a good company is usually born out of, which was necessity. I was creating my show via Patreon, which was the subscription model that basically everybody was using online. It was the one website that if you created anything, if you were an unboxer, if you were a politics guy, a gamer, whatever, if you wanted a subscription model, you went through Patreon. To do a very truncated version of the story, they started having really highly censorship policies that I was not happy with. They were blowing up accounts. If you said something they didn't like, they would just delete you overnight. No warning, no chance.
This is where a lot of the far left
reconciliation.
went. They were part of that whole movement.
They were very much part of that. The CEO, Jack Conte, if you remember him, I don't know what happened to him. I had him on my show after they had deleted a few people. He gave me some assurances that it wouldn't continue. It did continue. And then basically one day I was just like, I can't run a business like this. I can't run a business where the bulk of my money comes in on a platform that tomorrow could turn it off just like that. I went to my brother-in-law, who is an Israeli startup guy. They've got more startup people than citizens in Israel at this point. And I was like, listen, can you build this for me? And he's like, it's going to take me a few hours, but I think I can do it. And literally within, 2 or 3 days, he had at least given me the model that we were going to use. And we built it was before we called it Locals. We basically built a Rubin Report app so that I would have direct communication with my audience. I would own the data, the email addresses, live chat, live streaming, all of the stuff, but put the power back in the hands of the creator as opposed to just having it all off platform where, the relationship was very much one way. We wanted a full-on two-way relationship. And once we realized that it really worked for me, I closed my Patreon account. I did it live on air, and I did it live, and I would do a shot of Patron for every 1,000 subscribers we got because I was leaving Patreon, so we thought that was funny. Anyway, about 12 shots later, I ended up doxing myself live on air because when I said I'll close my account at the end of this live stream, but when I went to close the account, it says yes or no. I click yes, and it goes, "Are you sure?" And it showed my email address. So I literally released my personal email address out to probably millions of people. Long story short, though, we launched it the next day, and overnight we had about $30,000 of revenue a month. I had no idea if it was going to work. You build things, you think you did something nice, you just don't know. Woke up the next morning, immediately we were good to go. And then what we quickly realized was, I was like, wow, if that works for me, maybe it'll work for some other people. And we brought on a couple other creators that were kind of from my world. And next thing you know, I'm talking to guys like you, and we were like, boy, we really have something here. And then we eventually merged with Rumble. Rumble went public, and the rest is history. And we built a good product, which I'm very proud of. We defended free speech, which I'm very proud of.
I think you forced other people to have to go that direction too, because you created that option, right?
Yeah. Well, that was my hope. I mean, I definitely believe that if you build it, they will come. And I think if you show people that you don't just have to be beholden to the systems that exist, like if you're a YouTube creator and YouTube keeps demonetizing you or keeps depressing you in the algorithm or whatever it might be, figure out something else. And that's why Rumble started separately from us. So I just think you just need more things in the ecosystem to create more competition. And then over time, the best rise, or for the most part, the best rise, and the rest kind of go away.
We'll talk about a couple other things you're building. But first of all, you said you took the 12 shots of Patron for Patreon. You're doing a new tequila brand now?
I have a tequila.
So tell me about this.
You would think that would have taken me out of the tequila game altogether. Yeah. No, I over the last couple of years, some friends introduced me to tequila, and I was a wine guy most of my life. I'm not even a huge drinker, actually, but I started drinking tequila, and I just love it. First off, I really like sipping on something instead of, if you're out with friends or you're having dinner and you're drinking wine, somehow one way or another, you end up drinking a bottle of wine. It just there's always more wine. It's a lot of sugar. You drink a lot. I found I was getting hangovers, even if I didn't feel that I drank that much. Got into tequila where you really don't have to drink much. I happen to like it just on one rock, but if you drink it neat, that's fine too. We're making a reposado, which means it's aged 3 months. I've been working on this for about 3 years.
I have a brand idea for you.
Yeah.
So in the height of 2021 of the wokeness, we got really sick of these things. We thought we have to do like a counterculture brand with a white guy with tequila.
Yeah.
And we were going to call it Apropriación. And you'd be perfect. You could
that would have been absolutely.
And you could go across the border on a donkey.
Well, I already have a name, but can I use that maybe as some kind of promotional?
Brand, yeah.
that's actually a great idea. Well, what's interesting, I don't know if you saw, but even just this week it came out that Casamigos, the parent company of Casamigos, which was George Clooney's tequila that, basically I think he sold for $500 million.
It got much worse. It's it used to be really good. I'd always order it at the bar, and then I ordered it at the bar like a couple of years ago, and it was nasty.
Well, did you see the news this week?
No.
They're in a major lawsuit now because it turns out they've been cutting it. with either chemicals or sugar.
Oh, gross.
Or
Yeah,
something.
no, I stopped drinking it a couple of years ago because I think some of these things were like really good when they come out and they go way down.
Well, that usually they end up getting acquired, and as you know, they keep the recipe for a certain amount of time.
This happened to Whistle Pig too. I used to love Whistle Pig, and then sorry, I shouldn't be attacking brands on my show. But it's just like this stuff all goes way down when it grows.
No, it happens with you see great salad dressings that are little kind of niche salad dressings that then get bought by giant corporations, and usually in the deal you have to keep the recipe for like a year. You see this with a couple tomato sauces because every time you go to Whole Foods there's a new tomato sauce. So they usually, when they acquire the company, you keep the recipe for like a year, or you have a 2-year deal, and the next thing you know there's high fructose corn syrup in there.
I mean, think about it. If you were gonna like have Lafitte Rothschild, but all of a sudden make 100 times as much, it wouldn't be Lafitte Rothschild anymore, right?
But if you got the name and people don't pay attention to these things, then you go with it. So in light of the fact that Casamigos is now going through this little thing, it's not a great tequila anyway. It really is not. And even Clase Azul, which, it's the white and blue bottle that everybody loves. That's what really got me into tequila, because it does taste great, but it's not made the best way. And there's sugar and additives and all those things. Yeah. We've made something that is beautiful, that is exquisite, that we will send you. And I promise you, it will be the best tequila you've ever tasted.
One of the reasons amongst many, I didn't do the appropriation when I was joking about it, is that I was like, oh, it's going to be so funny.
You're just as white as me. Come on.
I know. It would have been perfect. And we were it's like the Jewish Irish. I don't know if it works, but it would have been funny. But you can't actually sell it online. I'm like, oh, what the heck? You have to hire reps to go to bars and stuff. I mean,
well, you can. Thing. So it's complex. I mean, you can sell online for sure. So we will be selling online.
You can do delivery now, door to door.
You can do door.
I think that's something that's changed the last several years. Or something
that literally might have changed during COVID. So we can. We will.
There you go. I was a few years early.
So we will. It sucks to be early, man. Well, sometimes it's good, but we're going to deliver to all 50 states. We're not delivering out of the country yet. So really, what I'm doing with this first round is I just want to test it out. It's a pure passion project because it's something that I love and I enjoy the culture, and I enjoy the making of it. I really enjoyed
cultural appropriation.
I love cultural appropriation. I enjoy going, I loved going down and going to the agave fields and talking to the guys that were out there and the kids that are working there. I just think it's great. And I love Mexican culture and food in general. It's really great. I've really enjoyed. Have you ever been to Tequila, the town of Tequila?
I've actually not been to the town.
So there's 4 regions in Mexico that you can make tequila. Mm-hmm. Most of it's made in Jalisco. Yep. That's where we are, and there's a town called Tequila, and it's a town based on tequila, which you can only imagine what's going on in a town based. Whatever you're thinking, like that's what's going on there. It's a good time in that town. And we're gonna mostly sell online. We'll be at a couple stores, probably in the Florida area, just to start. But I just want to see, can we change behaviors a little bit here? Because very few people buy, unless you're buying a very, very specific alcohol that you have to order online. Most people just go to the store.
Well, you couldn't buy it online until recently.
And you couldn't really. So
no, if you could do this is a great idea. I love it. We'll put a little link here.
I've been sitting on the name it's a great name too. I'm very
excited about it.
And I will tell you one thing, which is that every single bottle will be unique. We've done something with the artwork, so every single bottle will be unique. But I'm very excited. June 26th.
Amazing. All right, we'll send a little note on that. You're also building a production and talent network, which is like, so this is also Serious Tequila, but Serious Production and Talent Network. What are you doing? Yeah,
well, we basically have realized it's very similar to the Local story, actually, which was when we built Locals, which originally was just a white labeled website for me. We were like, oh, we could spin this off to other people, and that's what we've realized with the business of the Rubin Report. I guess I'm pretty good at hosting a show and doing that sort of thing. That's nice.
YouTube pays you a lot of money to do it, right?
Well, I get pre-roll ads, and it's
not too bad.
It's turned into a nice chunk of change. Now it has, but there were years, especially during the COVID years, that we were demonetized for months at a time. And
we can't. I guess this woman passed away, so we're not supposed to attack her who was running it. But it was just sad. But it was pretty terrible how they treated everyone on the right for a long time.
I won't speak ill of Susan, who has passed. I will just say I was invited there once at the height of like the craziness around censorship and everything else. I was creating such a headache for them by tweeting about it all the time that they were like, all right, why don't you come here? I went there. As I was walking in, I took a selfie with the YouTube logo, outside the building. Yeah. And immediately I walk in and one of the lawyers comes up to me and she's like, you've really created a headache today. Like that was even meaning that I showed up there. Meanwhile, they were taking pictures with every other creator that walked in the door, but I was a scary right winger. Anyway, I sat down with Susan and about, I don't know, there were probably 10 people, probably mostly lawyers. I don't even remember who they all were, but suits basically. And they were just asking me all these questions. And I felt like I was on trial. Like, I was like, guys, I don't want you to censor. I just want to be able to put up videos and make money.
Seriously.
I'm not a radical.
But they wouldn't even admit or have the self-awareness that they're being crazy about this.
No, and then at the end of the meeting, they passed me off to some young. He seemed like a kid to me. Like, I was like, literally, is this a high school kid? They were like, he'll be your rep. I sat with him in the commissary. Never heard from him again. Like, it was all. But I will say, to YouTube's credit, even though obviously we merged with Rumble, and Rumble's been absolutely amazing. But I will say something nice about YouTube, which is that they have gotten much better on the censorship side.
Yeah, well, they're actually, my stuff actually does well on there now, which
Yeah.
I never did. You know what I bet though?
But that's because of pressure. It's because of the competition. Suddenly they're like, we can't censor everybody. You know?
competition. And I think the Twitter files thing, if you could see a YouTube files, I think they're terrified of that. I think they do not want there to ever be a YouTube files. They want enough years to pass. It's all deleted because they would get in big trouble.
Isn't it interesting? I've mentioned this a couple times on my show that there have been no YouTube files. There have been no Google files, although Rumble's in a lawsuit with Google that's going to end up with a lot of discovery. And
That-
we'll
we
see,
need to
we'll
do more
see what they've been
discovery.
doing with their search algorithm. But isn't that interesting? Like, we find out this unbelievable stuff because of the Twitter files. And I was invited like a week or two after the original set, and I sat with Elon and they showed me like all of the ways they were shadow banning it. It was completely insane. I mean,
they're even turning me down. It was crazy. They're turning everyone down.
No, it's not even you. Like, you were somebody that had an opinion, and your opinion was, let's say, a little out of the thing. Like, congratulations, you're screwed, man. That's how it works. Like, but the fact that we get the Twitter files, it catches fire. Like, it literally changed the world, I think, because that's ultimately what then led to so many other people waking up once Elon started loosening up the algorithm and everything else. But that there has been virtually no cry for where are the YouTube files? Where are the Facebook files? Like, do you not think that all the exact same things, maybe even worse? I would argue Facebook was probably even worse. YouTube may have been worse. We don't even know, but
I'm surprised that the DOJ never actually sued them to do it. I guess this is why these guys have been so nice to him to try to
right.
all of a sudden they're his best friend. Yeah.
Well, what do you make of that? I mean, you're more in that world. Like, do you think it's just that all these people are like sort of in bed?
I'm very frustrated with how these companies did. I want to give Zuck a little bit of credit. He originally was a free speech guy.
Yeah.
And the culture went super left. And that was like all the universities, all the engineers. So he was like swimming in this thing that was super, super left.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was as courageous. Obviously, he wasn't courageous. But I think he was like, I'm focused on my business. I just want to win. And then that was his framework. And then he had some activists around him. And I think this happened. Again, I'm not like an insider there, but I do have a lot of friends who are. I think it's happened both at his nonprofit with the 2020 election and in his company, where he's like focused on other things and he kind of trusts these people around him. And then they went way more extreme than he thought. And then they started working with the government and doing crazy things. And I think he was actually offended by some of the stuff the government was trying to tell him to do. And so I think that did push him, for example, like he and a bunch of my friends have a school that's like sort of anti-woke because the school at Facebook was super woke. And so they all had to like build something else. It wasn't just like crazy far left. So I do think this stuff was so crazy that a lot of people like him, I think, realized they were kind of being cowardly, but also realized it's crazy and got pushed to the moderate side.
So I'm actually pretty sympathetic to that argument.
Yeah.
Most people just kind of think he's evil now, and I can understand that. And he definitely made a lot of mistakes. I am pretty sympathetic to that he was trying to build something.
Yeah.
The culture went completely insane.
Yeah.
He's probably like all these guys, like a little bit autistic and a little bit, maybe his eye wasn't on the ball or didn't realize, I was, it's like, sort of like Bane. I was born in it. Like, I was born in that thing. He was already successful by the time cancel culture came around. So I can be somewhat sympathetic to that. Maybe it just got a little out of hand. The part that I don't like is that I'm sure you saw at least some of the clips of when he was on Rogan about 3 or 4 months ago and they started talking about this stuff. And he basically was like, yeah, the government was calling us and it was brutal. It was brutal. They were calling us and telling us to take all these things down and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay. So you're about to have your mea culpa, and your mea culpa should be either we shouldn't have done it or I apologize or something. But it's like, then give us some names. So, okay, if government agents called you and said, you have to take this down, you're not the bad guy in the story now. You're under the pressure of the federal government to do something that apparently you weren't happy with. Go a little bit further. And I think that's like the weird part with him. It's like, I don't think he's the evil thing that a lot of people have made him out to be, but get a little bit closer to the end of the road so that all the people that are kind of 50-50 on you would be like,
there's a cowardice about fighting back, and it's probably coming from his lawyers, I'm sure. Like, you have to remember this guy's being coached
Yeah,
by
I get that too.
million annoying people. And it's like, I mean, I will say, like, Gary Gensler at the SEC, for example, was like abusing his power and doing things that are totally out of line. And you know, my friends, the McGilvoss twins, are disgusted by the fact that MIT or whoever's hired him, and they're public about that. And I like that. I respect that they're willing to like take that swing. He's not willing to take that swing, and so he's not a guy's guy, you know. And which is funny because he's trying to talk about masculinity.
No, now he's all
but
like
being a guy's guy means that the people who fucked with you, pardon my French,
they don't
like,
fuck with you again.
Yeah, they learned not to again because it was wrong. And that's something that this Silicon Valley culture, the legal culture, just missing.
Well, I think that's the key point, because if he wants to take everybody into the metaverse and have us all walking around with that strap on our head and all that craziness, that's coming, that where you just went mentally, that's like 3 steps down. He's going to strap us into this first, and then there'll be other strap-ons. For sure, that's coming, obviously. Like, we all know where this is all going, to sex bots. No one's going to ever touch another human again and all that. But putting that aside, like, it's like, dude, if you want to take us down that road, which he wants us to go into that metaverse with him, then is there any reason to believe the pressure won't come exactly what you just pointed out? You have to show the trust right now. And I think that's where it's like the idea that I would follow him down that road again. Maybe if you had the full mea culpa, but that's not what he did.
He's not showing that he's going to be a warrior, which is frustrating.
Although he did get a little more tan and he lost some weight and he must be on TRT.
It's impressive overall.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, because this guy, you know, obviously he got tied into the whole thing with his you know, the election in 2020 and 2024. 2024 was even more of a podcast selection than the last one.
Yeah.
I think you were very influential. Joe Rogan, who lives down the road here, was very influential, obviously, as well. Like, and this was, I think overall, was probably a good thing in the sense that you have all these different voices and different perspectives kind of breaking through the broken legacy media. But we were also talking about this last night.
Yeah.
There's ways in which it's also sometimes a crazy thing where you have people who have no expertise on history, don't really know the truth, and they're opening up these insane conversations about how we have a statue of Churchill here. You were joking before.
That guy.
He was the bad
look
guy.
at it. Look at that smug bastard. Look at him. Look at him. I'm going to take over the world. That was my British Winston Churchill. That was pretty good, right?
That was all right.
Yeah.
He's he wrote a bunch of my favorite books. I love how, you know, he was the first Lord of the Admiralty before World War I, and he actually like got to like get rid of all these bureaucrats to make the Navy strong enough to confront the Germans. And he did a lot of things over his career.
Bad dude.
Amazing guy.
Yeah.
Apparently responsible for modern Britain's problems, which is quite a stretch to me. But like, how do you think about
that line?
How do you think about this? Yeah.
Well, okay. So first off, that line, just real quick. So Tucker said that line that basically was like, well, Churchill's the bad guy because look at Britain now. And it's like, dude, he stopped Hitler. Now I get, let's put aside the Hitler thing for a second, but you can't blame someone for some stuff that's happening 70 years later. Like
Curtis Yarvin, the famous crazy monarchist, he's like, you know, he'd probably blame the Glorious Revolution for Britain's problems after 1688, which is comical to me. But I mean, you can blame William the Conqueror, as they used to call William the Bastard. Maybe it was his fault. You know?
Of course. Yes. So
for the trans people.
Right. Exactly. So I guess you can do that if you want. You can always lay blame elsewhere, and you can always go back another decade and find another person who is not perfect.
The War of the Roses ended the wrong way. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And now the trans people are in charge.
Exactly. So like you can do that, right? You absolutely can do that. I don't think it's the most sensible thing to do. But to your broader point of like, okay, this was the election of the internet. There's the ascendant new media. There's the descendant old media. I mean, even right now, as we're watching this like fight right now because of Jake Tapper's new book, and it's like the very people who hid Biden's incompetency are now writing books and doing media appearances, and now the new media is attacking them for it. It's a perfect example of all of this lunacy.
It's frustrating because they don't necessarily have any context on actual history, and they just make things up. Churchill, by the way, the socialists took over and broke a lot of things. You know what his line was in the bathroom when the opposition leader Clement Attlee went to stand next to him, and he's very uncomfortable with this because Clement was looking. He said, "Whenever you guys see something particularly large, you always attempt to nationalize it." So you like moved away.
Oh, that's funny.
It was great. But it's he's a witty guy who was against the socialists, but these guys have no context on the history in general. And I think free speech is important, but it's kind of scary for our culture that there's these wacky people taking millions of people down a direction. It's just crazy.
Right. So let's leave aside Churchill and Hitler and everything else. Let's just talk about the free speech component there.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I have no doubt that you and I agree that if someone wants to have a podcast and talk about whatever the hell they want to talk
100%.
about, they are welcome to talk about
100%.
it. Right. So in no way whatsoever am I calling to censor anybody. If you break the law, meaning if you use your podcast to say, go kill those people, or here's how to build a bomb, or, you know, the things that are actually illegal, then you have a big bigger problem. But in terms of the pure, because this is definitely the part that will be clipped of this episode, in terms of the pure free speech part and the freedom of association and everything else, I am allowed to interview whoever I want. You are. Joe Rogan is. Everybody else. Now, to your broader point of in this world where now everything has been decentralized and we don't go to, quote unquote, authoritative sources who in many cases failed us terribly, and that became very obvious during COVID. The question is, do any of us that have large audiences, do we have some sort of responsibility to the truth, as opposed to just taking everybody down every rabbit hole and seeing where that goes and just being like, well, I'm just doing what I want to do? My response to that is yes. I do feel that I have a responsibility as someone of some level of influence that tries to communicate the news honestly to people. I take that very seriously. That doesn't mean I'm not going to make mistakes. It doesn't mean I'm not going to interview somebody and miss something or whatever it might be. But I take that seriously. Now, it might just be that there are other people who are bigger than me that just don't feel that way, that are just like, I'm fucking around and I'm just going to talk to anybody and unearth every crazy conspiracy theory.
Some of these guys
else.
love conspiracy theories, and it's almost just like a way of being, is they're going to delve into conspiracy theory and everyone kind of knows it's conspiracy. But then I guess the problem is not everyone does know it's a fake conspiracy.
Right. And look, at the end of the day, the only way you can solve for that, unless you want some centralized department of truth, right out of George Orwell, which none of us want, the only way you can solve for that is more speech. So it's like, I would never tell Rogan not only who he can have on a show or who he can't, but if he wants to have every conspiracy theorist on all the time, that's fine. The hope would be that we have a smart enough population, and this is where also education has so failed us, but maybe AI can help in this, that people will watch certain things. It's what I described last night. I've been saying on my show all week. It's the ancient alienification of all of these things. We've basically decided to take ancient aliens and just be like, how did the Egyptian pyramids get here? Well, ancient alien theorists think that, and it came from the Martians. We've done that now with Churchill. We've done that now with the JFK files. We've done that with this, that, the other thing. And once you break down every barrier about the known world, it might get a lot uglier on the other side. So I think for the people that are concerned about this, which I would include both of us, all I'm saying is we're just trying to, I think, figure out what are proper guardrails, not to stop people from speaking, but how to sort the truth from the bullshit. And I don't know what the answer to that is.
I want to return to some of the other battles in this world around us.
Yeah.
And, so my concern, by the way, in the background on this is it does seem like a lot of forces have conquered our education in our country. The teachers unions, a lot of leftists kind of march through these things, and they put these kind of woke oppressed narratives in. Yeah. And it's scary for me, as my mom's side's Jewish, my dad's side's Catholic, our kids are Jewish. And it's scary for me from that perspective, because if you truly believe the only main reason people are not doing well is racism, then you also kind of have to believe that the reason some minorities are doing better must be oppression. And so, you get all these young people in our population are very primed to see Jews as oppressors. Yeah. And then you've always had these anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. And so when you share them, the population's already kind of been programmed to maybe believe this stuff. And so you just get millions of people going along with it. In this context, you have the Ben Shapiro and Tucker situation. And Tucker's someone I actually agree with, like, on a lot of things. And I have a lot of respect for a lot of other things he stood up for. But on this respect, he's clearly kind of like whistling along those lines, and it's crazy. It's like what's your impression of this situation?
Well, I agree with that. It's been sort of disappointing to see Tucker do this. It's just kind of obvious what he's doing, is what I would say. Like, he's bringing on people always to kind of further, it's the Jews. Like, it's just one thing after another. He goes out of his way to do it.
I mean, we are pretty awesome, so I know why people are annoyed.
No, well, people like their minorities oppressed, and Jews had a lot of oppression, and then suddenly, thanks to the freedom of America, Jews got over oppression. But that doesn't put you in the oppressor class immediately if you view the world in this,
And there are a lot of annoying lefty Jews for people on the right to attack. I'm not one of those, but I get it. I get why they're annoyed at those people.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you should be annoyed at lefties in general. Yeah. So if you happen to meet a lefty who's a Jew, okay. And if you happen to meet a lefty who's a black, but that doesn't mean that all black people are lefties or annoying, or Jews or anything else. Yeah. What this really boils down to is the difference between individualism and collectivism, obviously. Yeah. If you're going to look at three guys and be like, well, those three are Jews and those three are blacks, and I'm going to judge everyone by that, it's insane, right? Like, it's absolutely insane.
That's why some people call it the woke right, I guess. Is that a term that you think stupid, or does it kind of make sense?
I think it makes sense because they're starting to use it's not that they're into the exact same idea set, but they're starting to use the same tools and they're starting to use some of the same language. What I would say as it pertains to Tucker is I would love to see, again, Tucker can run his show however he wants, and I don't want Tucker kicked off anything or anything else. I was texting with him last week, so I'm not sitting here like shitting on him. But what I would like to see is, okay, Tucker, if you have whatever these beliefs are and you keep bringing all of these people on, and you're such an arbiter of truth as I think he purports to be, well, then you have to, don't just talk about Ben Shapiro every week, invite him. He texted me, said he's welcome on his show, but he won't publicly invite him. So it's like publicly invite him, or I'll go on and discuss this stuff, or I'm sure you would. There's videos of him 2 years ago saying Douglas Murray is the most important public intellectual we have and nobody knows more about anything. And now he's mocking him every week. So I think we're all just asking him to maybe be a little bit more open than he is or something like that. I'm not calling to censor him at all. I don't think he's evil. I think there are some people who are genuinely bad actors in this space.
Is this him responding? We mentioned this last night as well with the students. There's all these crazy incentives where you have a big audience and the audience kind of like responds well to certain things. And so you as a journalist or media personality, you start thinking in terms of what your audience wants to hear, what they're going to share. Like, is he responding to certain people on the right and kind of echoing what they want to hear right now?
Again, I can't speak to what's in his heart, but what I can speak to is that this is a guy who is in cable news, right? He was huge on cable news. It was the #1 rated show in cable news when he got axed. But he was in a certain box and it had certain, it was like bumper bowling. Like it was just in these kind of lanes, right? Then when Tucker, at the height of his career, he came to my house to do my show. He walks into my garage and he sees my studio, and I had a TV well before, this is before COVID. So like I was early in on the home studio thing, and I had as good a studio at as they have on network TV. He opens up the door to my garage. His exact words were, "Holy fucking shit, you did it." He could not believe how free I was, right? Like that. And I think, so that got in his mind. I'm not saying it was just me, but like the idea that there's freedom on the other side, you can do whatever you want. So then he gets fired by Fox for whether it had to do with the election stuff or whatever it was. He gets fired by Fox. Now he's free. He's in a completely different world where the pressures are completely different. And then with algorithms and everything else, if you just keep giving red meat to your people and the algorithm keeps pushing them that direction,
you can go pretty extreme,
it's basically like if you were to walk in the ocean and you had your eyes closed and, if you were walking sort of horizontally to the waves, over time, you're going to keep moving and not even realize that you moved. And I think that probably is a better explanation. I would prefer that be the explanation rather than he somehow is racist or something like that.
I hope that's what it is. And I've noticed this too. This is obviously not what I do for a living. I'm doing it for fun. The other day, someone thought I was a podcaster.
That would be nice.
Which
I wish I was
great.
doing it for fun.
It was great that someone thought I was a podcaster.
I want to be super rich and do this for fun.
And I have noticed though, if I want to get like a lot of views, I just like say like crazy populist right things. It's a good thing that's not how I'm making my money, because it does push you that way a little bit.
It does. And I would also say that, part of the problem is that speaking calmly about things and really trying to like dissect things properly and really it just doesn't go viral. It just doesn't go viral. So like someone could be watching this right now, right? And they're going, boy, Joe's good interviewer. I like Dave, whatever. Okay, they're having an interesting, but they're not at the edge of their seat right now. Like, I'm going to clip that and put it up and destroy those people. And but if you do the other thing, the fucking Jews did it, or well, then you can create all of the viral moments. And if you watched any of that Douglas Murray, Dave Smith debate on Tucker, it was like, it didn't really matter what happened for 3 hours of the conversation. It was just like, could someone get a 15-second snippet? Because that then becomes the fire of the internet.
Them and it goes that
and
way.
Then that's the thing that the rest of the internet models after. So these are all the things that are changing so fast in how we communicate with each other that we're going to have to come to some reckoning with this.
Well, I hope so, because otherwise our politics are screwed. Like the Democratic Party, for example, right now, I have some pretty rational, moderate Democratic friends. I'm not allowed to say that for some people on the right, but I think there are some of them that are rational.
I'd love to meet them.
And exactly, you're not allowed to acknowledge they exist, which is fine. And then it seems like they're like 20 to 25% of the party, and actually, though, what's crazy is 70% of the party doesn't even agree with the crazy trans issues. But the 30% that does, and all these other people who are afraid in the middle, are like pulling it in all these crazy ways. And is AOC and Bernie going to be in charge of it? Are we going to be able to swing it back to a same place? Like, I don't want to be as involved in politics as I am, but if AOC and Bernie are the other option. It's actually like it's almost like the right wants them to be too, because now I have to be more involved in the right. To
Well,
stop them,
that's a great way of laying it out, because that's why I'm so interested in all of these tech guys that became political, because most of you guys just wanted to build things. And usually people that want to build things are pretty libertarian in nature, right? You just want the government pretty much off your back, so you don't have a lot of regulation.
Don't break things, keep things functional.
Yeah, just don't do anything too crazy and let me keep my money so I can build more things. Like that's a generally very American way of looking at the world. Then, unfortunately, because of the soft underbelly of liberalism, which puts tolerance at the top of the hierarchy, we are tolerant, we are diverse. That's what liberals love.
We're
more
tolerant
than
of
anything else.
illiberals too, though.
But that's the problem. It's Karl Popper's paradox of tolerance. You don't want to be tolerant of intolerance. But the liberals were so focused on tolerance, they let the intolerant people in. So when you see this weird red-green alliance, why is it that the masked jihadis for Hamas are hanging out with the queers for Palestine?
That's weird.
This doesn't end well. No. For those guys.
Well, they
right?
eventually kill the queers once they're in charge, but for now they're useful idiots.
No, they're useful idiots because they were like, boy, we can usher in an awful lot of authoritarian lunacy with these guys. We can't just march in being like, okay, we're jihadists, we're taking over. No, you could take over a political party slowly, and that's largely what they've done. So I would say to any of your, I'd like to meet these people, by the way, to any of your moderate Democrat friends, at this point, why not just be a moderate Republican? Meaning that Trump is, I think, largely defending the right ideals of America. I think that the social issues have kind of all shaken out already. We're sort of past that from an American perspective. And why not be in line with, say, Tulsi, who ran for president as a Democrat 4 years ago, or Bobby Kennedy, who ran for Democrat president only a year and a half ago, or someone like Rogan, who didn't endorse Trump till the day before the election, or someone like me, or probably in some sense someone like you, who obviously strikes me as a moderate that probably would have been a Democrat 15 years ago. So I just don't see what
I'm a little more hardcore pro-liberty, but that's fair. Yeah.
Okay, all right, but within reason, if the Democrat Party was the Democrat Party of 20 years ago,
a lot of my friends would still be in that category, and I would be to their right. And now it's funny because now they've ran past me in terms of their enthusiasm, which is great, you know?
I mean, I'm telling you, I see that every day in Miami now because we're still getting such an influx of people like you guys are here in Austin. And the people that I now see are the craziest, reddest
Well, they're refugees. They're refugees.
But, you know, refugees 20 years ago, you'd move from Cali to Utah because your taxes were too high. And then you'd get to Utah and vote the same stupid way, right? But these people come and they've got a story to tell.
Oh, yeah. Well, California was conquered. I'm sitting here today literally texting like friends in the Texas house, like, why the hell aren't we passing this thing to cut off the blue lobbyists and all these from the cities, all this stuff? And it's like, they're like, why are you so? I'm like, you have to realize, like, we're coming from a place that was conquered. We got to fight, you know.
And I feel that too. Florida's got a bit, as good as DeSantis is, and as red as the state has gone, Florida's got some weird stuff going on in the legislature right now that he's got a big fight on his hands on a couple different fronts. But good, Joe, you're in the right place and fight for it. It's a lot more. Look, I fought very hard to get rid of Gavin Newsom and the recall and all of that stuff. It's worth it to fight against things. It really is when things are going haywire. At this point in my life, I like fighting for things. So I like being in a place that's flourishing and helping it flourish.
That's what
but we all go through phases in life when sometimes you want to fight against something, and I guess usually you're younger and dumber, and then sometimes it's nice to fight for something.
No, I know. You know, in my policy group, we have teams in like 20 states. So we're fighting like hell for the country right now, and I'm excited about it. On that policy note, before we end, I want to ask you, what do you think of Trump's second term? What's going on with politics? How are we doing?
I think it's basically been flawless. It's been as good as you could possibly imagine. He's like 120 days in. I think the trade deals, as Sachs said on All In a week or two ago, we have to see where they land. But for the most part, well, first off, the market completely came back after 3 days of craziness. It seems to me we are going to get good deals. Like, it seems fairly obvious that we're going to get good deals out of probably 60 countries, or at least better deals than we had. The border has been closed. We are doing deportations. I am for getting rid of as many illegals.
We're not doing enough deportations,
are
we?
We're not doing them as fast as Bill Clinton.
The numbers are really small.
Yeah. So, because suddenly the Democrats care about due process. They didn't care about it under Barack Obama or Bill Clinton. It's incredible. These people hate the system until they don't have control of the system. Then they're very concerned about all the things they used to hate. They love the courts now. They wanted to pack the courts before. Now they love the courts because the courts are doing what they want. I mean, it's all so obvious once you see it. But I would say on virtually every front, even Trump the last couple of days in the Middle East, like, he's thinking about these things in a different way. I don't know that he can fully get everybody to sign on to the Abraham Accords, but if we could basically push Hamas out of the equation, get the hostages back. And then all you have to do really for these other countries is just say, guys, look, it's been a fun run just blaming everything on the Jews while you abused your own people. But enough of that, which is basically what he said, enough of that. Stop hating this one place, and then everybody here can prosper. And that actually is the truth. And it took a guy like him to say it, to go to Saudi Arabia and say it, and go to Qatar. And I'm not defending Qatar because they funded a lot of the Hamas stuff and everything else, and they've funded an awful lot of what's gone on at our universities and all of that stuff, right? So it's not a defense of them, but he went in and he took a very pro-America, pro-capitalism, not we're going to nation build, but he basically said, hey, we're back. And if you want to join the party, you're welcome. But we're not taking everybody into the party. Like there's going to be some rules here. So I just, people want me to criticize him more. They just want it badly. Okay, the optics of the plane, kind of weird. The optics of the plane are weird, for sure.
I'm 8 out of 10, and I love this administration,
Yeah.
and I'm helping out a bunch of stuff. I think the optics of some of the pardons I didn't love. There's some people I don't think deserve pardons.
Sure. So I could probably get on board some of that. So
Yeah.
yes, can we always find, like if we sat here for
You can always find things to criticize.
Of course we
Yeah.
could find a couple things here and there, but in terms of all of the big stuff and Doge, I mean, we didn't even talk about Doge. Like when you really look at what's going on here, I don't see how you could objectively be like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like it's been pretty damn good. The country
we have a lot of
feels-
smart friends in Doge.
Yeah.
We're doing
And just
well.
look at it this way. When the election, day before the election, if you had known that Kamala was going to be president, 90 days later, you would basically be like, man, hope is lost. I was at Jordan Peterson's art conference in February, and about 100 countries were represented there. And everybody there, this is now, Trump's a month back in at this point because it's February, everyone there was like, thank God Trump won, because our countries cannot lead. We're not brave anymore. We need, if America leads, maybe we can follow. But there was no one there from Spain or Germany or South America or Asia that was like, yes, we'll take the reins on this and go. Everybody was like, it's America or bust.
I was losing a lot of sleep worrying about the election. I totally agree with you. And so this is a positive direction. We have a lot to execute, and the HHS has great people there. We got to make a lot of hires, fix a lot of these things. DOD's going the right direction. There's still a lot to fix, but it's positive. I want to ask, coming back to America and optimism.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear and division right now. It's actually, it seems like more than in my lifetime. It has been before, even now, unfortunately, with his presidency. And that gets more clicks, some positive news.
Yeah.
This is your business. Does it have to be that way? How can we move our cultural dialogue a positive direction? How can we be in a great place in a few years? What's that going to take?
Well, I love the line that Trump said before the election, which is when they were really focused on that he was going to take revenge against people. And he said, success will be my revenge,
That's
right?
great.
I love that line. And I think that's the truth. For the stuff that you're concerned about as it pertains to this set of people that are blaming everything on the Jews or whatever weird things happening on the right, combined with the toxicity of the left, the best antidote to all of it is American success. The more that the economy is chugging along, the more that the border is safe, the more that you could go into the city with your family and not feel like you're going to get mugged because you're going to a show in Times Square, or someone's going to stick you with fentanyl because you walk to the opera in San Francisco or whatever. Like the more that it works, it just makes the crazy parts dissipate, right? Like if the country is really working and then there's a huge YouTuber or whatever online that's just like, the Jews are right, people are just going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go out and have dinner with a friend because I can afford that, and I'm going to go have a good time and live my life. So success to me is the answer to everything. It's partly why one of the things that I've really tried to do with my show in the last couple of months, post-election, has been, I am giving people as much positive news as I can. Like, I know that that's not necessarily like the stuff that's going to get you the click. Like if I just go to fat lady at Wendy's, throws a hamburger into somebody's face, and then 7 other fat people attack each other. Like, yes, you
I don't watch that.
People love, if you get like a bunch of like fat women throwing hamburgers at each other, people love it. And I understand
That's
that.
also American.
No, and that's very American. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for it. There is a place for it. It's called Wendy's. Go there and do that. But there's other good things happening. You know what I'm saying? And I think if we can just focus on that, actually, less fat people will throw hamburgers at each other because they'll take more personal responsibility.
This has been sponsored by Wendy's.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry. This is,
Actually, it should be sponsored by the plexiglass that they now put up so that you can't throw
do
them.
they really?
Well, they've had all these things. Did you see the story out of McDonald's?
No,
Where
I
was it
missed
in?
this.
Where was it? Arlington, Virginia, there were so many fights breaking out at this McDonald's that it's now 21 and over to eat in the McDonald's.
Wow.
Like,
That's-
does that tell you something might be wrong? The place that
culture.
created the Happy Meal for children, now you have to be 21.
Well, I'm glad to focus mostly on the optimistic side of the
Yeah.
cultural dialogue.
I
the
feel we
positive
did some
stories.
optimism here.
Let's keep building and keep
Yeah.
employing people. Thank you, Dave,
That's
for
the
being
plan.
here.
My pleasure.